Hi, thank you for listening to Journey with Jess. I'm your host, Jessica Monge, and this is part 2 to Karen Barahona's interview for Hispanic Heritage Month. If you didn't listen to her first part, go ahead and listen to that. You might be a little lost for the second part, but I'm so excited for you to listen to this. So without any further ado, this is Karen Barahona. Oh, so you broke the generational curse and you're like, no team up for me?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Everybody thought I was going to be a teen mom. Like,
Really?
everybody, bro, everyone expected it. And I was just like, that's not who I am. I didn't want to have sex when I was a teenager.
Oh.
Yeah, I was not. So I grew up religious. I grew up Christian. So that also really added to anxiety and shame and hiding. You know, that's also another reason why I never told anybody anything, because I'd be looked at a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so bad. Even when I felt comfortable and safe enough to tell somebody about what was happening with my first boyfriend, because I met him in church, they told me there's 3 sides to every story: your side, his side, and the truth. And God knows the truth. And I looked at her and I was like, but why would I lie about this? Like, why would I want this to be something that I have to talk about at all? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't talk to her anymore.
Good. Cut her
off. I don't talk to anybody from church except for like 2 people. And they, you know, one of them was my age, so she realized how fucked up our church was way before I did. And she left way before I did. But we're still really good friends. I've known her since I was like 6 years old, and you know, like, we have very specific memories together because nobody else like went through what we went through. Yeah. So it's really cool that she's still in my life.
Oh, I love that for you. That's like a really long-term friend from like 6 years old to now. That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, it was very strange growing up with my mom, basically.
Right. So you said you moved into your aunt and uncle's house, right?
Yeah, that was an experience because they also had a son, just one. And basically I came and I fucked everything up for them. You know, they were very comfortable in how they were living. And I was just like, not in a bad way.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, sorry. I should have, I like rocked their world a little bit, I should say.
Okay.
Because they were very comfortable with how they were living and everything. And I came and I was like, a lot of this has to go, you know?
Like, what? What do you mean?
Because you know, they only had one son, so he got everything he wanted, and he just had an abundance of things that he no longer used, but nobody did anything about it.
Yes.
You add a new person to this, and then, you know, like, they know me. It's not like I was a stranger in their home. Like, I had never been there. Like, I have never, you know, spoken to them. If anything, I feel like I spoke to my aunt, more about how I was feeling and what was going on. But even then, she had come from El Salvador, so it took a while for us to really be able to understand each other, you know? But she's super cool. She's super liberal now, you know? So she's like, awesome. She's woke now. So it got very easy for us to just connect. Like, she's one woman that I call mommy. Like, I call a lot of the women in my life mommy, except for my aunt, because if anything, she's more like my sister.
Okay,
yeah. But yeah, it's, you know, it was really easy for me to be like, okay, like, we can all do better than how we are right now. So I came and I like helped them get rid of a lot of things that they no longer needed, and, you know, just like set somewhat of like better habits for their son.
That's good.
Yeah, but you know, it didn't last too long because I ended up transferring colleges. So I went from St. Francis to Buffalo, and then that was kind of like my deadline. Like, I told them I would only be here for a year, and that's exactly how I did it. I was setting myself up to leave. I went on vacation to Guatemala, like right before I moved officially to Buffalo. Yeah,
Nice.
so I went on vacation with my family and then came back and basically like I packed everything before I left and I just had to like grab all my shit and go
You
to
went on
Buffalo.
vacation with your parents and your siblings?
Yeah, with
Okay,
my
okay.
parents, my siblings, and my grandparents.
Nice.
That
How
was
was
the
that?
last time. Honestly, really fun, and
Okay.
it's super super close to my heart now because that was the last time we went on a family vacation like that. Because that year, like right before I left to Buffalo, was actually when we found my grandfather's skin cancer. So I was the one that actually
Mm.
found it. Um,
Really?
yeah, because I thought he just had like a pimple, and I took care of
Mhm.
him. Like I would do his nails, I would like brush his hair, like
Oh,
just not because he couldn't do it, just because I liked
yeah.
to
You're
do it.
just sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, let me just pop this pimple for you, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was almost like a little granito came out, like a little like rock thing came out, and I was like, oh, what was that? And it had we were outside, so it had fallen, and
Yeah.
we couldn't see it, and I was like, oh, like that was super weird, and he just had like it was a hole, like like
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was like really open, and I was just like, I was like, you should be careful, like put ointment on on that or whatever, I
Mhm.
thought it was just gonna be like a large scar. And it ended up getting infected, and that's how he ended up going into the process of figuring out that he had skin cancer.
What? So that
Yeah,
that pimple wasn't a pimple, it was like a
it
mole?
wasn't. It was like it was a tumor almost. So essentially, like a whole thing came out, like a hard thing came out of him.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
So it was
That
like
is
I would
crazy.
assume that that was like somewhat the cancer, you
That's
know.
crazy.
Yeah. So right when I left was when he started getting sick and like
Mhm.
going through it all the whole process of whatever he had to go through chemo. um he was really down and out for a long time, and like it sucked because I wasn't there,
Yeah.
so I was hearing everything later than everybody else, like
Mm.
they didn't think to update me as soon as they heard news. They always thought that like I would find out eventually or whatever. I don't know what they were
Wow.
thinking,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they just did not update me properly.
Right, right.
So I was finding things out, and that was super sad. That definitely added to my anxiety, especially trying to figure out how to live on my. I wasn't on my own, but I definitely wasn't happy in the situation that I was in.
Right.
And I didn't realize that until like 2 months into that situation. Because
Mm.
I thought, okay, it's a new adventure. It's going to be different, obviously. But let's see, like, maybe it'll change. It did not change.
Oh,
It
what do you feel
didn't.
didn't change?
Well, I guess what I'm really referring to is my significant other at the time. Like
Okay.
we were living together
In Buffalo?
in Buffalo, and it
Okay.
was just very much, you know, um, I had to find a job on top of taking care of my new school things, and like
Mhm.
the part of the reason why I wanted to transfer schools was because I felt like I wasn't learning enough, and I wasn't. And
Mm.
then I go to a school that was actually teaching me, and I was like, wow, like this, I wasn't really prepared for any of this.
Mm. Gotcha.
Um, so it was just stressful situation on top of stressful situation, and not being able to like reach out to my parents because one, they didn't really want to talk to me anyway, and like it was just really hard. Just trying to catch myself, and I'm like stumbling, like
Right.
it's just stressful after stressful after stressful. I don't think it stopped until I would say until like the summer of like 2019 maybe.
Wow.
So
That's a lot.
like for a year it
Yeah.
was just constant, and I still did not have my family by my side, or like as a, I don't want to say safety net because that's not what they should be, but
Mm.
as like a support system in
Right.
general.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of aloneness and a lot of trying to figure shit out on my own.
Yeah, no. It's a lot for a young person because even as a teenager, after you get out of high school, you're still very young. You're still a baby.
Absolutely. And like I didn't know, like I knew what it was to kind of have to sustain myself just because I had to.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize like how much work it was really going to be outside of one New York City because I didn't know how to drive. I never learned how to
That's
drive.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to depend on like my friends or roommates to take me to get groceries or like
Mm.
for anything that I really needed. Like I needed other people, and I
Yeah.
wasn't used to that.
Yeah.
So if I always felt super bad, and I always felt like a burden,
Yeah.
which only added to my
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm just like, damn, what's happening here? Like I left so I didn't have to do this, and look at me now. I'm still doing it. Or
Yeah, like you
like
said, it's different stresses and stuff.
yeah. But yeah, it was it was definitely an experience. I would do it all over again. I'm not gonna
You would?
lie. I would if I don't live at home now, but I am way closer. I do live with my grandma. So it's very much it's a safe haven now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very different than what it was 5 years ago. But I'm very grateful. Like it's been an adventure. My anxiety was through the roof last year specifically,
Mm.
and now I feel calmer. Definitely not anxiety free, but a lot
Yeah,
calmer than I've ever felt before. I feel like more peaceful,
that's good.
and yeah. Any
When,
questions? I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. When did you finally when did you feel your relationship with your, I guess, parents or your mother got better after you moved out?
I feel like the Christmas of 2019.
Mm.
That was when I was no longer with my significant other from Buffalo anymore, and that's when she like finally opened up to me.
Oh,
She was
interesting.
just like, yeah, it was super interesting because like I guess she didn't feel like she could talk to me if I was with somebody. That makes sense.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. So I was finally like I was single. I'm an adult, and she just kind of like opened up, and that's when I opened up, and I was just like, man, like we could have been talked about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it still took a couple years. Especially because I moved even further away, so I was only visiting once in a blue moon. But
Right.
then, when I moved to Manhattan, I feel like that's when our relationship really started to take a turn, like get a lot stronger because I
Mm.
was able to just come over here. Like a 2-hour trip from the Upper West Side to where my parents live. So I would be able to come over for the weekend, hang out with them for a day or two, and then, go back home, or
Mm.
they would finally be able to invite me to go to like different things with other family members who haven't seen me in all the years that I was gone. So it got easier and we got to talk more and we got to spend more time together. And, that's when I really started opening up to her about certain situations in my life. And she was like, oh, I've been through this. Like, this is what happened. And I'm just like, wow, like, that's very similar to what
Yeah.
I'm going through. I wish you
Mm.
could have spoken about this sooner.
Yeah, yeah.
But in due time, like we're definitely at a really good spot. Like she'll just call me because she misses me,
Oh,
even though she lives
yay.
downstairs. Like
Oh.
yeah. So she's literally down on the first floor now. I live on the fourth, and like on the other side
Mm.
of the building. So she's very close, but she'll still text or call me and be like, "I haven't seen you in a couple days. Where are you?" And I'm like, "Home." Like I live
Here.
upstairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you could walk up the stairs and see me if you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's also, it speaks on the importance of like talking about your experience with your kids or your parents, because
Yeah.
that's where generational cycles or curses or traumas end. Because
Yep.
if you would have known earlier from your grandma's situation to your mom's, you probably wouldn't have gone through it either.
Yeah. And that's what I told them. And that's actually something that my uncle um
Oh,
made a comment about too. He literally used to tell me all the time, I really wish that you would talk to your mom about this.
oh
Because I
wow.
have, yeah. because I did definitely feel a little more inclined to speak to the men in my family, but not so much where they knew exactly what was happening. But, you know, like very surface level, like there's stuff that's going on that I don't really think is like okay. You know what I mean?
Yep, yep.
So he had, since I was younger, he was always like, I wish she would speak to you, or your mom would speak to you about her relationship with your father. And I was like,
That's
but why?
crazy.
He was like, you need to speak to your mom, but she never spoke to me until the December of 2019. So it's crazy because that you really just jolted a memory. Like it's a male in my family that's like, okay, you guys need to speak about stuff because this is like a pattern that's happening.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I was like, well, thank goodness I broke it. Like one of the biggest things is like if I would have had gotten pregnant from being with this man or child, he was a child. You know, or you know, like it's things would have been so different. I feel like I would have been so unhappy, a teen mom, you know, like, and I would have felt obligated to an extent because we were both Christian.
Yeah, I get the religious part. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's
like,
a lot of pressure.
It's a ton of pressure. They would have wanted us to get married. They would have wanted us to keep, like, let's say if I got pregnant, they would have wanted us to have the baby, you know, like everything that would have ruined any chance of me being my own person would have happened at that time.
Well, you dodged a bullet, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I know you've been mentioning your anxiety. I want to know what was the first time you actually really felt anxiety and you knew that it was anxiety?
Oh, in college. In college, I actually would have a lot of panic attacks. That's when I really understood, like, okay, this is something that, one, I felt for years, and two, like, this is the most I've ever felt it. So I would hang out on like the second floor of my college a lot with my group of friends, some of which you know, and I would just start like crying because I felt like there was just so much happening, and then hyperventilating to the point where I would have to be like, okay, like I need to go outside, you know, and I would just kind of be outside like like, and like it would get faster and faster, and I'm just like, fuck, like I don't know what to do. Until one of my friends, she was one of my old roommates now too. Her name is Natalie. She's from St. Francis. You know, she's
Widow.
That's my plot sister. I also love her. Widow also did really help, but very much on like just providing me a space where I felt safe, especially in college. You know, like she lives maybe like a 20-minute walk from me. So I would just walk on over. Yeah, and we would have like little dates, and you know, she's my sister for real. You know,
I love that. That's good.
Yeah, so she definitely did create a space for me outside of my own home, in her home. Like her whole family is just such a blessing. But for school wise, it was definitely another Natalie, and she would come outside with me, and she would just kind of like try to find ways to break my hyperventilation. So she would just kind of make me laugh or like say something, and you know, like,
what a sweetheart.
Yeah, like she did a lot for me in college. She just kind of held it down every time that I needed to be brought down from like this high level anxiety situation that I created in my own head, you know? And like she has videos of me of like hyperventilating. She was like, "This is you." I was like, "Oh my God."
I mean, is she really your friend if she doesn't record you?
Exactly.
You know, like
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
you know, she was a huge help in me, one, realizing like, okay, like I have anxiety and I have to handle things a little bit differently than I would like to, or, you know, like I need to find new ways on how to calm myself down, so to speak. So
yeah,
I did, you know, I mean, I would have breakdowns when I was in high school, but they were usually at night, and I was usually like profusely crying and like in bed, you know, so I was never in a situation where I was like, oh, like this is bad. I was just like, okay, this is bad, and I'm home and nobody's around. So it's not really like, you know, like it's fine. But when it
you could
started
release it.
happening in public, when it happened in public, that's how I was like, okay. And it happened a couple times in college in public, and I was just like, damn, like this is an issue, like there's something that I have to do about it. And then from then on, it was very much like I felt not that it was gone, but that I was trying to find new ways to deal with it. And then in 2019, it definitely took a turn because that's when, I'm an adult, I'm 21. I just kind of fell into vices. I would like to say I had it under control, but I was drinking like full bottles of wine and watching the original Star Wars trilogy and having like a bottle per episode. And I'm just like, damn. Yeah. I'm like, that's a lot, like thinking back on it, it's been a lot. That ended up not helping with my anxiety either because I was just like, oh, I'm anxious. Let me have a glass of something. Like I didn't really go out as much in Buffalo to say like, oh, I went partying or I went out drinking. It was very much, I'm home, I'm going to have a glass of wine or a bottle of wine, I'm going to have a drink of something just so that I don't have to think about what's happening. And then ended up like using hookah as a vice as well. That was something that I got very into. And then ultimately into smoking marijuana. So all of these vices just kind of came into play. And it wasn't until recently that I was like, oh man, I don't remember the last time that I did not have a vice. And that was super jarring for me because I was like, yes, it helped me in the moment. But I leaned off of alcohol, set into hookah. I leaned off of hookah and like set myself into smoking marijuana. So it was like, I didn't really give myself a break from not having a vice. I just changed what my vice was. So now I'm really learning how to handle my anxiety and not try to lean onto a vice. And it's really hard. It's really different because I definitely took a lot of like breathing exercises and made them a part of my life when I really started smoking weed. Just because I was like, I like my lungs. I like to run and jog, so I need to make sure that I maintain that. But then I realized, holy shit, this actually really helps with my anxiety. If I'm feeling a certain way, like I don't need to smoke weed. I could just breathe and, like take a moment. So it's still very much learning how to live with anxiety. And like I've never had to take antidepressants, or anything like that, or anxiety pills. Sometimes I wonder if it's because I'm really good at masking how I'm feeling and like I can like, and I've told this to my therapist too. I was like, sometimes I wonder if I'm performing my emotions for you, so that you don't think that anything's wrong with me, but like I'm here telling you like I have a problem, like there's an issue, but still really getting used to not smoking as much, and that's been weird with my anxiety. I have felt a little bit more anxious lately since I like kind of slowed down with that. But it's I had mentioned like learning how to people please.
Oh yeah, you did, of course.
Yeah. So that happened years ago, but now that I'm, trying to wane off of my vices, I realize that my people pleasing is really coming into play because I'm constantly like wondering like or thinking about not hurting this other person, even if I already know and I have like the outcome in my mind and I'm just like, okay, this isn't something that's gonna work for you. I'm still out here like, oh, but you don't want to hurt this person, you don't want to make them feel bad, you don't want to, you don't want to be a cause for something in their life, I thought it was good and I thought I was like a recovering people pleaser, which I am, but like it started to come back a little bit with the anxiety, and I'm just like, oh no, like no, this isn't who I want to be. Like I want to be firm and doing what's good for myself and not falling back just because I feel like I'm gonna hurt someone else. But it's really hard because I've always had to walk on eggshells, you know, like I couldn't not think about not hurting someone else, you know, like I never wanted to make anybody feel the way I felt. But then I always accepted if they made me feel that way.
Right.
You know? So I'm just like, dang, I don't want to be that way. I never wanted to be that way, but that's just what I learned, you know, as a Christian, and you know, I have to be forgiving. I have to be kind. Yeah, you know, like, and my kindness is a virtue. I'm just naturally kind. That's just who I am. But then it takes over to a point where it's like, okay, you're being too kind, you know, and you're hurting yourself, and it's causing you more anxiety than you actually want.
Yeah.
So it's very much a learning curve. I'm still very much learning how to just understand like what I'm feeling and like why I'm feeling it in the moment. You know, like, I think I've learned how to take a second and like ask myself, okay, what do I need in this moment now? Yeah. And like, what can help me? Can anything help me? The other day on Tuesday, I had such a bad day, like mentally. Like I was like, oh man, like I hate that I can't do much. And mind you, I'm healing from my surgery.
Yeah.
So there's only so much that I can do, but in my head, I'm not doing enough.
Right.
And
That's
I
from
feel
your
like,
creencia and stuff.
yeah. And I'm just like, I can't be sitting around and not doing nothing. Like I can't help with anything. I physically cannot keep my arms up for longer than like a minute. I feel more or less like useless, and I don't want to feel that way. But it's all in my head, you know. It's my head telling me you're resting. You're not allowed to rest. Like you need to be doing something. Like what do you mean? Like clean your room at the very least. But I can't. Like it hurts, bro. Like I'm in pain.
Something that I tell my students in times like these, it's like, and your therapist probably told you if you guys are up to this point, but have you validated those emotions when you're going through it?
Yes. I always tell myself like it's okay to rest. It's okay to heal. Like you need to heal. But still my brain is very much like like you're not doing enough. You should be doing more. You can do more. But in reality I can't. Like not because I don't want to. I'm not trying to be lazy. Like I'm healing.
Yeah, and you're
my
not lazy,
brain,
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My brain just doesn't want to accept that.
Yeah, and there's always that bully, big bully, right? A part of us that we grew up with. It's probably the voice that we heard growing up, probably because someone was telling us those things when we were growing up. But what would you tell like younger Karen today?
Oh, that's a good question. To take it one step at a time. Like not to try to do everything all at once. Like yes, you think you can and you probably will, but it would just be so much easier if you took everything one step at a time. Do one task at a time. Figure it out thoroughly and then move on, you know?
Yeah.
It's like even now I catch myself trying to do a million things at once and I'm just like, all right, focus. Like, you got this, but do it one at a time.
Right. I feel like when you talk about your people pleasing stuff, I want to say it's not a horrible thing, right? Because like you shouldn't want to hurt people. But when it starts hindering your life and you're walking on eggshells and bending over backwards, I think that's when the problem starts.
Yeah.
What are some things that you're trying to stop people pleasing to that extent?
I think I'm learning how to say no. Like I know no isn't disrespectful, but I always like to take it a step further and just explain why I'm saying no. You know, so like for example, there was this guy that was trying to like take me out on a date, right? And I knew that that's not what I wanted. But I would have said yes just to make them happy.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. Which is not a good thing to do.
Yeah. No, I guess because I see you in a certain lens, I didn't know like it could also go to this extent, you know?
I would have said yes to also make them happy, even though I knew that that's not really what I wanted. It took me a while to like build up the courage to do it. And I ended up even like sending a message saying like, hi, like, hey, like, you know, I just don't think that this is something, you know, that I see going anywhere, and I didn't really give you a chance to get to know me or something, for that. Like, I apologized because I felt like I led them on, not that I led them on, but like I gave them the idea that I would let them get to know me, and I didn't do that, So I was just like, I'm sorry that I didn't really give you a chance to get to know me, but like I just don't think that this is gonna go anywhere. Whatever. And, like that took a lot of courage for me because I was just like, I'm trying to say no and be nice and not hurt your feelings, Because like I understand some people aren't going to like you all the time. I get that. I don't mind that people don't like me.
Okay.
Like your perception of me is not my business. Like I know who I am. I'm very firm in who I am, but I just don't like to make people feel bad. And that's my problem.
Wow. Okay. That's so interesting and stuff. Because like I said earlier, like I never see you as a bad person, but I always saw you as someone like who was firm in what they wanted. Not saying that you're not, but this is interesting, right? Because you even apologized to this man, would I know you said you let him on and stuff, but I don't think that's your fault, because you didn't do it to a bad extent, I think.
Yeah, but it makes me feel bad. Like you said, I am very firm in like what I want and who I am. It's just I don't like to think that I can make people feel bad, and that's 100% my people pleasing side. Like it's still very much here, and it's very much like a part of my life, and it's so hard because I'm constantly worrying about how I'm gonna make people not, or how am I not going to hurt this person's feelings? I don't know, it's super weird. It's very contradictory. It's super contradictory, and it's my everyday life. I even do it with my supervisor because I'm like, I don't want to come off as like rude, but all I really need to say to something that she sends me is like, okay, sure, like like, okay, no problem.
I feel
but
that,
like, like it's, I don't want to come off a certain way, even though I'm okay if people see me as that. Like, if you think I'm a bitch, I probably am, but like I'm not gonna come off as a bitch, It's super contradictory. It's really difficult to like balance and like handle. I'm working on it though.
I mean, you're conscious of it, so that's the first step. So these episodes are going to air during Hispanic Heritage Month, and these are conversations that we don't have, especially as millennials or Gen Zs or whatever. Like, these are conversations that are probably had in private, and some people probably don't have at all. So it'll be really nice for some people to be able to relate or even understand how we grew up and stuff. So I want to thank you for sharing your story. It was very personal, and I'm just honored that you let me interview you. But is there any piece of advice you would want to give to anyone listening?
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me share. Like you said, a lot of our stories are not spoken about in public, and I would love to deep dive into other people's stories like this because it's real. I think my advice would be find your people that you feel safe with, and if you think in the slightest way that you should take up therapy or you should talk to somebody, do it, because it's gonna be worth it 110%. Like understanding yourself is super important, and understanding where we came from is also super important. And there are people out here who have similar stories, and we're willing to listen. So share.
I love that. Find your chosen family, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. I do want to say, I don't know if you've read the book, but if anybody else listening resonates with Karen's story, I really want to recommend the book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, because the book doesn't place blame on our parents, but it just helps us understand them more. And I think that's wonderful because now us as adults, some of us might hold resentment. Some of us might just be confused. And I think that book explains it perfectly. So highly recommend.
Thank you for listening to Journey with Jess.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Journey with Jess with Karen Barahona. Hope you really liked it. If you have any suggestions for future seasons, like season 3, that's going to be coming up next year, please leave them down below. There's a little link where you can leave suggestions, comments, whatever you'd like. If you like this podcast and this episode, please give a 5-star review. It helps a lot. And if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Comment what you'd like to see next. And appreciate you being here. Make sure to follow me on social media where I give more mental health tips live. Thank you.